The world's weather is getting wilder.
The Earth is a very violent place. There are all kinds of natural processes happening all the time.
From terrifying tornadoes
People are gonna die today.
to monster hurricanes.
Nature's a beast. It'll come at you any way and every way it can.
It was mind-blowing. It was unbelievable.
A life and death situation in a hailstorm.
All I remember is beelining it towards that animal, grabbing it and getting it in the car.
And record-breaking waves.
It was just like, bang! A shock all the way up my back. And then I had the washing machine effect.
As the world warms up, we hear first-hand accounts of people living through new extremes of weather.
The flash flood's right there!
You're in the middle of this perfect storm of mud. You really have to focus on surviving.
We had passed the point of no return.
And we reveal exclusive footage captured by people around the world.
Call 911!
So, shelter from the storm and hunker down for the world's wildest weather. Coming up on World's Wildest Weather. Living through a direct hit from a powerful tornado.
It went from calm and serene to total chaos in the snap of the fingers.
Oh my God, Starbucks just got blown over.
And an amazing escape from an Alpine avalanche.
I told myself, okay, now you might die.
But first, Hurricane Matthew brings record floods to southern states in America.
Yeah, rescue squads out here. This is not a creek. This is a street that I drive down every day.
October 2016. Hurricane Matthew has already torn through the Caribbean, reaching Category 5, the most intense hurricane classification, shortly before sweeping across Haiti. So the emergency services are on high alert as it moves up the east coast of the United States. In Fayetteville, North Carolina, police officer Aisha Cannon is hard at work.
We tend to prepare for these natural disasters, gathering all those resources and strategically placing them throughout the city.
But when Matthew makes landfall in the US on the 8th of October, after traveling more than 1,000 miles, it has diminished to a Category 1 strength. The emergency services in Fayetteville, nearly 100 miles from the coast, don't anticipate too many problems.
I had no idea it was going to be the storm and cause the destruction that it did throughout our city. We were just expecting some rain and wind.
But as Matthew hits the coast, a cold front over the land drags much of the water from the hurricane further inland than usual.
Now you have not just Matthew, but a strong frontal boundary that's come into play, and that's going to transpose most of the moisture and energy that's associated with Matthew inland where this trough is. And that's going to serve as the trigger for the heaviest rainfall, and it's inland. It's not happening along the coast. We're talking 50, 100 miles inland because that's where the cold front is.
So on the morning of the 8th of October, Aisha wakes up to discover that more than 2 inches of rain an hour are falling on her local patch.
On my way into work, I could see the roadways that were starting to flood that I've never seen flood before. And about 10 a.m., we started to realize, okay, this rain is much more than the city of Fayetteville's able to handle.
Just a few hours later, there are people stranded in homes and cars all over the city.
We got vehicles under water right now.
For their own safety, the police patrol the streets in one of their special emergency rescue vehicles.
Our Rescue 2 vehicle is actually a military vehicle. So the tires come up to my chest. They can take on 4 to 5 feet of water without issues. So that would allow us to make sure that nobody's stuck inside those vehicles that were stalled out from those high flood waters.
Officer Cannon sets off in the armored truck to protect and serve the citizens of an inundated Fayetteville.
We're pulling trees out of the roadway right now in the police rescue vehicle.
And as she patrols the city, she broadcasts live updates on social media to warn people of the ever-growing flood dangers on the streets.
There are plenty of people still out here driving in these weather conditions, putting their lives at risk.
One of the things I just remember seeing is cars just floating. You just kind of see them moving with the current. Look at this car, it's floating. And you're like, this is not a creek. This is a street that I drive down to get home every day.
You see anybody?
No, it's clear. It's clear.
Okay, guys, that car is clear.
It's not long before Aisha and her colleagues spot a driver at risk.
Oh, we have somebody right on top of the vehicle here.
We come upon a lady just kind of standing on top of her car, like she's standing on the car seat, has the door open, and she's standing there. Obviously, she's stuck. And for us, you know, it's, hey, someone needs help, we're going immediately. If the current's strong enough to start moving a vehicle, you know, we're at a race against time.
The rescue vehicle powers through the fast rising water to the stranded driver.
Her car had to be in at least 3 to 4 feet of water. She was standing on top of the car seat, above the car, just trying to hang on. And that's a dangerous situation to be in.
They quickly swing into action.
All we could think about is how can we best get to her? And Detective Robinson is like, I got this. He backed the Rescue 2 vehicle up and immediately just lowered those stairs onto the hood of her car.
All right, guys. Police Rescue 2, we're gonna try to back up to this lady here.
Hold on. We're coming. Hey,
we're coming for you.
Hey, let me get back there and get her.
She looked so cold. She looked so wet, and we had no idea how long she had been there.
As Aisha and the team approach, the cold, wet driver has a surprise up her sleeve.
I'll never forget this. As Captain Joyce goes out to help the mom into the Rescue 2 vehicle, she pulls this baby out of nowhere.
She has her child with her.
And everybody's just like, where did this baby come from?
Oh, come on, sweetie. Oh.
He's screaming, like they pass him to me.
Come here. Hey, cutie.
It's okay.
Hey, buddy.
He was cold and he was wet, and I just held him until we were able to get the mom all the way in.
Thank you, guys.
You could just see the relief in her face and the appreciation and the thanks that she had for us just stumbling upon her and being able to help her.
The Fayetteville police force have made it just in time and return a thankful mom and her son to the safety of dry land.
I don't like to play the what if game, but that car easily could have been swept away. It makes me feel proud that I was able to be a part of that and actually impact someone's life.
Officer Cannon's mercy mission has a happy ending, but the rain continues to fall relentlessly across the region. The flooding escalates, leaving more vulnerable people in dire situations and requiring more remarkable rescues by the authorities. The 31st of January, 2015. The French Alps. Dennis Corbett and Colin Gomez are students in their early 20s from the Lausanne area of Switzerland. The experienced off-piste skiers have been based near the popular ski resort of Châtel for a week. But there has been heavy snowfall and high winds.
I've never seen that much snow in the Alps. Like, it was just pouring every day. We had like maybe 1.5 meters in just like 7 days.
Then on Saturday, the sun comes out.
With no clouds, perfect sunny day, and so we know that we would like to go out, but we have to be really cautious and we have to take into account the risks.
The combination of heavy snow and high wind can be dangerous. The wind blows around to the loose snow, risking hazardous conditions on the open mountain. But the boys are still tempted up to the higher slopes.
We saw some other people climbing this mountain. That was the first big mistake.
And having headed higher up the mountain, they soon find themselves at the top of a more exposed slope.
It was exactly the kind of place we didn't want to go. It was like an open face with like really wind affected.
They move separately down the mountain, checking each other's progress along the way, filming each other as they go.
I first did, I would say, half of the descent, and this is the moment Dennis decided to go.
At the top of a steeper stretch, Dennis gives the snow a nudge to check that it's firm enough to ski.
And from this point, I started to really try to test the snow by putting a little bit of weight on it. And it was kind of all right. And so then I just went in and jumped.
And at that point, I saw him skiing, but this was no problem, no big deal, because he was just skiing normally.
But Dennis is hurtling into danger.
I was just thinking about like making nice curves and just enjoying the snow, but I saw that there was something in front of me, like a big line, but it was in front of me.
I saw the crack and I was just hoping Dennis is being able to go straight and just jump this little bump.
The little bump is actually the start of an avalanche.
And then I just realized, oh shit, it's an avalanche that I'm on. And then when I'm on it, it's too late. It was really like when you're at the beach and you have like huge waves that are coming to you and you just know that you're gonna get destroyed.
Then I saw that he was taken. Now this is really serious.
The wind and snowfall has created a dangerous three-layer situation. A solid bed of ice at the bottom, looser wind-driven snow above, and a more compacted slab of snow at the surface. The avalanche happens when the slab slides over the looser snow beneath. This avalanche leaves Dennis beneath more than a meter of snow.
When it stopped, I was really squeezed by everything, but I wasn't hurt. My knee just dislocated a little, but then you really can't move. And that's the first time I really could think a bit about what was going on, actually. I told myself, okay, now you might die.
I realized that Dennis couldn't move and he couldn't get out by himself.
It is now a race against time to save Dennis from his icy tomb. Some avalanche fatalities come about as a result of the impact, but a far more common cause of death is suffocation.
It's the lack of oxygen. You have some oxygen in the snow itself, but then at some point, you start to breathe what you expire.
Denis, est-ce que tu m'entends?
After 6 minutes under the snow, your chance of dying increase exponentially. So you really have to act fast to get someone out in less than 6 minutes.
Colin has activated his tracking device, which is now monitoring the airwaves through a radio signal from the safety gear which Dennis always carries with him when he is skiing.
Denis, réponds-moi!
The only chance he has of locating Dennis lies in picking up the radio signal his friend is transmitting from his icy cocoon. He has to ski close to where Dennis is buried to receive the radio signal. But if he moves too quickly above his friend, the receiver may miss the transmission.
The first thing you need is to obtain a signal from your friend's transceiver. And so this is the reason why you have to go very slowly, because if you go too fast, maybe you can miss the signal.
So Colin painstakingly tracks across the area that could conceal Dennis's snowbound prison.
Denis, est-ce que tu m'entends?
You just see blue around you, and you can't tell if you're upside down because everything around you is just blue.
Finally, Colin gets the first faint signal.
J'ai un signal, j'ai un signal!
The first notification for me was Dennis is here. The machine is working, and so that's a very good point. So now the chances are growing and growing.
But Dennis is likely to run out of oxygen if he is not dug out quickly from the snow.
I tried to stay the calmest I could to minimize the amount of oxygen I was consuming. But at some point, I felt like I was getting a bit dizzy, and I lost the notion of time. I couldn't really tell if I was there for 30 seconds, 15 minutes, or even 1 hour. Really, it was really weird.
As Colin uses his tracking device to hone in on Dennis's location, he starts to hear a strange noise.
I thought I was just like making some noise for people to hear me, but actually I was like a little animal, you know, that is hurt, that is in distress. Really, it was weird for me to watch the footage because I wasn't conscious I did that.
It was like a hurt animal. It was just doing.
Yeah. I thought I was just like, you know, like signifying I was there,
exactly.
Like something like this. But that's really when I watched the footage, I understood that okay, like I wasn't in my normal state.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Yeah.
Colin digs away furiously, soon helped by passing skiers. Even so, it still takes about 40 seconds to get through more than 1 meter of snow to reach Dennis.
The first thing we saw was his pants, and so I started to dig all around to find his head.
After more than 5 minutes trapped in the snow, with his oxygen running dangerously low, Dennis is finally dug free.
And yeah, now I'm kind of happy because I can breathe freely, I can see something, I can see my friend, and
he even told me what I can do, how I can help you.
Yeah, how can I help? Yeah.
Man, we're just in the snow. You don't do anything. We are just waiting for the rescue team just to check how you are.
Dennis's only significant injury was a dislocated knee.
We made a big mistake at the beginning, but we tried to solve it.
At least
yes,
he solved it the right way. So yeah, thank you, dude.
More than 150 people die in avalanches every year. What saved Dennis from sharing that fate was the fast action of his friend and the tracking system both of them had worn for their day on the slopes. October 2016. Over 15 inches of rain has fallen on some parts of North Carolina in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew. After a day of widespread flooding and dramatic rescues in the city of Fayetteville, filmmaker Quavas Hart decides to head out with his drone and document the dramatic impact of this historic storm.
I film a lot of things. I'm always somewhere trying to get shots in my drone. That morning, I basically had gas in my vehicle and 2 fully charged drone batteries, so I wanted to just go out around the city and to get as much footage as I could.
As he surveys the area to the south of the city, Quavas is shocked by the scale of the damage.
I was able to see, roads that were completely washed out, neighborhoods that were completely submerged, cars that had been washed off of the roadway. It was like something out of a movie.
Eventually, his filming takes him to the small town of Hope Mills.
I came across this little portion of the neighborhood that was completely submerged. There were 6 or 7 houses in a cul-de-sac that were all underwater up to the 2nd floor. I think this is like actually where I was standing at, and all this was water, and the water came up to about right here at this intersection. So I deployed my drone and took a picture and just loaded it up to my Instagram and Twitter. So this is the actual picture that I uploaded to the internet. I wanted people to get an image of what we were going through here in this area.
Just minutes after posting the image, Cuevas receives a worrying message.
Some guy hit me back on Twitter. He just randomly came across my picture on the internet, and he said, his brother was trapped in that house with his dog. It can't swim because it's old, and they've been trapped in this house for 14 hours.
The Federal Emergency Management Agency has over 1,300 workers in North Carolina helping people at risk in the storm. Firefighter Craig Mignon is covering the Hope Mills area.
To be able to get into that neighborhood, we were going to have to kind of plot it out through where the floodwater was and navigate the floodwater through some of the creeks that had flooded to get into that neighborhood. So it was a pretty rough trip to get to where we were going, just working through all that dense brush.
Back on dry land, Cuevas gets his drone up over the neighborhood again to identify the man in peril.
His brother was sending me messages and saying he's gonna walk to the window and try to wave you down. And as I was pulling back, so I could see all the houses in my viewfinder, I see this guy poke his head out of this house, and I look at him physically. I'm like, yo, he's right there. So I'm like, this is real.
By now, Craig and his team have navigated into the neighborhood. They are spotted by Cuevas.
I was, pulled back trying to get a long shot of the area. I could see a boat off in the distance.
We were calling out for anybody in that area, making a lot of noise, calling out that we were search and rescue in the area. My partner, Grant, that was driving the boat, said, hey, don't freak out, but over your right shoulder, there's a drone flying right over top of the boat, and he's videotaping everything we're doing right now.
I immediately flew the drone over there, distracted these guys, and they could see us kind of standing off on the shoreline and, yelling at them at the same time. So I kind of lured them up to the house.
It doesn't take long for the rescue squad to reach the stranded Hope Mills resident.
He had gone up to the second floor of his house and had met us at a second floor window looking out onto the street. So, pulled the boat basically right up onto his front porch, opened the front door and stepped out of the boat into about 4 feet of water, waded into his house and met him at the stairs. He told us that he wasn't sure about going because he wanted to be able to take his dog, and we let him know that we'd be more than happy to take his dog as well.
They float back from the door and they started coming to the shoreline. And at that point, I'm just, looking in my viewfinder, like, wow, I actually captured this whole event on film. That's what I was trying to do that day, just go out and get some footage. And I happened to save someone's life. It's a humbling situation.
I think it's a good alternative for him to be able to put a drone up and take a look around the neighborhood like that and find out if there's folks that still need assistance. He could kind of stay up there on dry land and check those houses out and notify us if anybody needed help.
Across North Carolina, there were more than 2,000 water rescues in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew. The state took a terrible beating with nearly $5 billion worth of damage and a total of 31 deaths attributed to the storm. The 24th of August, 2016. Indiana, the United States of America. It seems like a typical summer day in the small Midwestern city of Kokomo. At Chili's Bar and Grill, close to the mall on the edge of town, Brandon Mobley is working on the air conditioning unit.
The weather on the day of the tornado was pleasant. It was sunny, just a few clouds, but not enough to even cast shade. It was just a beautiful, normal day, and you'd never even thought that severe weather was anywhere near or approaching.
Real estate agent Shelley Dyer has an appointment in the city.
I had gone to lunch earlier in the day with a friend, and it was sunny skies. From there, and went to the meeting in Kokomo, and on the way down to Kokomo, it began kind of misting and darkening a bit.
The meeting has been organized at a coffee shop across the parking lot from Chili's.
I went in, kind of noticed that it was getting darker and darker outside, but There wasn't anything out of the ordinary, nothing that made me feel alarmed.
Local storm chaser James Longwith is following the weather reports with interest.
There was some showers and precipitation over the area and clouds overhead, and there was a marginal risk for severe weather here over Indiana.
Shortly before 3 o'clock, Brandon gets his first warning of the problems ahead.
I received an alert on my cell phone from the local weather station, alerting me that there potentially could be tornadoes in my area. I did not take it seriously because the sky was pretty much clear, and I actually thought it was a mistake.
But just 15 minutes later, storm clouds are gathering over Indiana. Shelley's meeting continues despite a growing commotion in the coffee shop.
You know, we all kind of noticed the beeping and whatnot, and it said, you know, tornado warning, and we all just pretty much disregarded it and continued with our meeting. I didn't feel any kind of worry or anxiety about it, just normal. It's Indiana. Often we get them enough that it's not an alarming thing to see a tornado warning. Well, it wasn't at that point. Pay a little more attention now to them.
James has been tracking the weather system. He sees signs of a major storm powering towards Kokomo.
I grabbed my camera gear and my laptop, and I got it set up in my car. I was getting ready to go out and start filming.
Back at Chili's, Brandon suddenly realizes the storm is very close, and he is directly in the line of fire.
When I looked straight up above me in the sky, and there were debris literally flying hundreds of feet above me, and it just brought flashbacks to movies, and went inside to seek shelter.
In the coffee shop next door, the manager, Angel, kicks off the emergency drill.
He came up to us and said, we need to go to the bathroom for safety.
The sky when the tornado was approaching was gray and eerie, and there was trash and debris just flying everywhere. It was pretty chaotic.
Hunkering down in the bathroom, Shelley can't see the tornado, but she can hear it.
The first thing that I heard as the tornado approached was debris hitting the side of the building. It became very real at that point. It was very hushed in there. You could have heard a pin drop.
Brandon is now sheltering inside the nearby Chili's, filming the impact of winds of over 150 miles an hour on his city.
I was just taken aback by the view of the tornado. I mean, it was huge. It was a big, massive thing. Within a matter of seconds, the power was out. There was debris flying outside. Anything movable was blowing away from the tornado. It went from calm and serene to total chaos in the snap of the fingers.
Couldn't see anything. It was a bathroom. We were all just kind of trying to listen for what was happening. It sounded like things were blowing around in the dining room, and then there was a crash.
Oh my God, Starbucks just got blown over.
The full force of the tornado smashes through the coffee shop.
It was almost like it was a house made of paper, and the big bad wolf blew, and it just blew over. The top came up, lifted straight up, and then fell over. The walls crashed down. It literally just pushed over. And it was terrifying. I didn't know if Chili's was going to be next.
The EF3 force tornado is pummeling a wrecked and ruined Starbucks building with winds of 150 miles per hour. And a terrified Shelley Dyer is trapped in the wreckage of the coffee shop as the storm rages above her. Aberystwyth is a pretty seaside town on the west coast of Wales in the United Kingdom. The holiday resort lies on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean on a stretch of sea-facing island. In 2014, Matt Robbins was a student here with a home right on the promenade facing out on the ocean.
I've never lived on the seafront before, so it was really nice to get up in the morning. You can hear the sea through the windows anyway, and to get up and look out over the sea was fantastic.
Ian Lawton came to Aberystwyth 2 decades ago and loved the place so much he never left.
It's what makes the town what it is, the seafront and everything. It's just an ideal place to live and bring kids up and everything. It's perfect, yeah.
One of the fascinating things about this picturesque seaside town is the ever-changing weather.
On a normal day in Aberystwyth, the sea was very calm, and from where we were, we could see right up the bay. But during storms, it was night and day difference. I could feel when I was in bed the water smashing into the sea wall. You could feel it through the floor and through the house.
Computer studies student Matt became so obsessed with the weather, he rigged up a camera to record the view from his room.
The Abacam is what I called it. It was a small computer with a little webcam up at the front of it.
In the winter of 2013, Matt's camera starts to capture some extraordinary wild weather on the Welsh coast. Though the conditions that create the storms actually start some 3,000 miles to the west. Cold air, moving south from northeast Canada, meets warm air, moving north from tropical regions of the Atlantic. The warm air rises to create a low pressure system, or depression, and major storms. At the end of 2013, a series of these depressions was driven towards the United Kingdom by a high-altitude wind system known as the jet stream.
During mid-December, as this jet stream intensified, it had a real influence on what was happening at the surface. And these depressions or low pressure systems explosively deepened. The deeper the low, the more damage it can do in terms of wind. And with stronger wind, you get rougher seas.
The storms are travelling thousands of miles across clear ocean to reach the British coast, so there is a lot of time for waves to increase in size. And then they are channeled into a narrow expanse of sea as they approach Wales.
So as this huge body of water is pushing towards the mainland, it's funneled between the land of Ireland and Wales. It was pushed into a small confined area. It has to go somewhere, and that's why it pushed onto the land.
So by late December, there have been storms hammering into Aberystwyth for several days. But for now, the sea has been contained.
Around the start of 2014, yeah, the weather was very different. It was all very grey and dull a lot of the time. We got these very strong winds that I think was really pushing the water up over the seawall.
Now, a third ingredient is about to create the biggest storm in generations, a spring tide. Spring tides have nothing to do with the season. They are extreme tides caused by a particular configuration of the Earth, Sun, and Moon.
When we have a spring tide, the moon and the sun and the earth are all aligned, so it increases the effect of that gravitational pull on that body of water.
On January the 3rd, 2014, Aberystwyth faces the combination of a spring tide and a major weather system blowing across the Atlantic.
People were saying that there was a big storm coming across from America and it was going to be high winds coinciding with a high tide and a full moon, and everything sort of comes together at once.
The waves started quite early on January the 3rd, and they started coming up over the sea wall, over the barriers.
The Royal National Lifeboat Institution are on red alert.
It was extreme. It's something that I haven't experienced in my whole life of living in Aberystwyth.
We'd never seen anything like this before, never the volume of water flooding across the promenade towards our house. This one large wave came up and I thought, I'm going to get a bit wet. Closed the window and then heard a couple of stones ping off the window which had been opened seconds before.
The water is now rising over 50 feet as the waves hit the front.
It's really hard to walk out onto the seafront because the alleyway funnels the wind through so much. So you're soaked by the time you get to the seafront. And then you step out and the whole world opens up in front of you. And the waves were crashing and crashing everywhere. The flagpoles are all over the place sometimes, with the wind blowing through them.
The promenade is taking a pounding.
The damage was getting worse and worse and worse with each wave. And obviously if the waves come over, the vast amount of gravel and sand comes over with them, and the seafront was probably 1.5 foot, 2 foot deep in the beach basically. And when it's still got the water in it, it is like a liquid, it's like thick soup.
The emergency services soon find themselves swimming in this seafront soup.
The fire brigade went past and unfortunately got stuck in all the grit. So the fire engine was buried a good foot up its wheels, it was buried in it, and it just couldn't go anywhere. Tried digging it out and tried all sorts until the council turned up to tow the fire brigade out.
But the fire service's troubles aren't over yet.
That's where a massive wave comes over and engulfs the fireman as well. For a second you think, you know, I hope he's all right, but then obviously he is, and then everything's okay.
As the land emergency services struggle, the seafaring rescue team is called into action.
You get a lot of people, when you get extreme weather like that, they're drawn, it's like a magnet, they're drawn to all the places where any sane person wouldn't go. It doesn't matter what signage you put up, doesn't matter what advice you give them, they are drawn to go there.
One young man strays out onto a jetty and puts himself right into harm's way.
A cubic metre of water is equivalent to a ton in weight. He would have been hit by several cubic tons as the water crashed through and hit him. So it would have either taken him off the jetty entirely or smashed him into the railings. A decision was made that his life was in danger, so we had to launch the boat, essentially, in quite extreme conditions, where water was cascading down onto the lifeboat as we were launching. In those circumstances, we would only launch if somebody's life is in danger. The safe thing was for him to stay in a safe position where we could rescue him from the boat rather than him try to risk it himself.
Finally, the storm dies down, leaving a battered and bruised Aberystwyth in its wake.
We went and had a look along the front, and it was crazy the amount of stones and rubble that had come up onto the promenade. We saw cars that had been moved, which I never thought was possible.
The Victorian shelter collapsed into the sea as well, and that completely disappeared.
I've lived here all my life, and I've never experienced anything like that in my time.
The forces of nature are something you can't really get your head around until something like this happens.
The storm caused more than £1 million of damage to the town. The promenade has now been rebuilt, and multi-million-pound sea defences are planned. But some locals remain sceptical.
You keep coming up with new ideas of ways to hold the sea back, but if it wants to come over, it comes over. There is no stopping it, basically.
August 2016. A tornado with winds in excess of 150 miles per hour has swept through the Indiana city of Kokomo, destroying a coffee shop.
Oh my God, Starbucks just got blown over.
Shelley Dyer has survived the impact, but is trapped in the wreckage with more than 20 other people.
At that point, I felt like I was in danger. It felt like, almost like when you're in a car accident and you can see it happening, but you can't really do anything about it. But we couldn't even see anything, so it was just listening.
Brandon Mobley is over the road in another restaurant, filming the tornado on his phone.
The parking lot was full of cars. I knew there were a number of people inside. Oh my God, there's people in there. All you could see is literally Starbucks laying on the ground and no people. It looked really bad.
All the noise happened, all the clanking and the debris and whatever, that all happened, and then it was just quiet. And, you know, we kind of all looked around at each other, we're okay. And so then it became, now how do we get out of here? Because we couldn't open the door.
I called 911, but I knew it would be time before they got there, so I ran out of the building hoping I might be able to help somebody. I didn't know if there were any survivors or not. Looking at the building, you would not think there were any survivors.
Brandon rushes over from the restaurant where he has been sheltering to the Starbucks to see if there is anyone left alive.
We found the bathroom door still standing upright, and when we beat on the walls and the doors, you can hear the people inside.
We heard a voice outside. Now I know it was Brandon, and you could hear the fear in his voice. And he says, "Are you guys okay? Is everybody okay? Is anybody in there?" And, you know, we kind of all looked at each other and we're fine. Just get us out of here. And he says, "The whole building fell down. I'm moving bricks. I'm moving blocks."
We were able to get the doors up and out away from the debris and pile and the rubble, and allowed to help those people get out of there one by one.
They pulled the door out and we climbed out across the blocks. Once I got out of there and I looked at the building, I was shocked. I couldn't believe that it's completely demolished, but the 2 bathrooms were standing. The only 2 things standing were those 2 bathrooms. It felt like a miracle that we survived that. It didn't look like anybody would survive that. Nobody even had a scratch. We all mulled around in the parking lot because what do you do? And then I got in the car and drove off. I mean, it was crazy.
Just a few miles away, James films the same extreme weather system as it roars across the Indiana countryside. Then, he too has his own terrifying close encounter with a tornado.
The tornado began to touch down in front of us on this road, so we just kind of stayed in our car and hoped for the best. We were very, very near that tornado. Our ears were popping from the pressure drop. My fiance was in the car, and you could hear her yelling at me to back up.
James, back up!
I could hear the debris of the tree limbs and branches hitting the side of the car. We were running over them. At one point, a realtor sign started getting hurled towards us as we were backing up. And at one moment, there was a trampoline that went over someone's fence and was rolling alongside our car. You know, I got this tornado coming right on towards me. I don't know how strong it is, how big it's going to become. So I was definitely scared. When the winds finally died down and the tornado was moving away from us, that's probably the moment that I felt safe and could just take a little breather and go, we just survived, you know, being inside a tornado.
1,000 homes were damaged in the Kokomo area, causing an estimated $10 million worth of destruction in one of the biggest tornado outbreaks ever seen in Indiana. Back home, Shelley watches Brandon's Starbucks footage with her young daughter.
That's when it got me. My daughter says, "Mommy, did anybody live?" I said, "That's where I was." When she said that, I thought, oh my gosh. I mean, we really were lucky. That footage is terrifying to me. It's unbelievable.
I think I've just learned that Mother Nature is something that you need to respect.